Hello. I just want to do something a little bit differently. It'll be more of a storytelling, not tutorial, but maybe just ideas on how to approach storytelling. And it's something that every artist, I think, could definitely invest some time into, or maybe generate different methodologies on how to approach it, which then can be very stylistic to your own aesthetics and aid it. The way I approach storytelling is maybe almost akin to how I approach connecting nodes, if that's a weird way to think about things. But let's say if I have a character here, so let's just say this is the character container. I'm like, alright, let me just plug this into an event, and then plug this event to a final output. However, you can always reroute this character into different things. Like maybe it goes into, this is me relating to Blender nodes, oh my god. Here's another character, and this is how they meet, that somehow end up, but this won't work, because we already have the character finalizing this event, so they get connected to another event, which is then an output here. Crazy. So this is how I kind of slowly think about things, where each of them are in their own isolated instance. However, much like history, we are connected through a series of events told by usually the victor, but in this day and age now we're starting to hear the other side, which is fascinating. We want to see, we want like a well-rounded story, which I like to take into account. So let's say we have a series of things that happen here. We have two characters that interact, that somehow previously met here, but this character has already completed the story. Or what is happening here is that if we look at this, let's say we can do little abstract symbols of like character 1 and character 2. Character 2 goes through some sort of transformative event, and then through this event is changed somehow, and we're going to say that this is the output. And through this character, the second character is introduced by being met with this character. So we're going to have these two characters meet up. However, this character has already, from the looks of this, gone through his transformation and is now meeting through here. So this character, the second one, knew this one, character 1, this is a math problem, before he went through a transformative thing, but they've meeting up the event here. So what does this cause? Let's make it a little bit more friendlier this way. Let's just say, let's say, I'm gonna go fantasy here and say squire and knight, and the event here is gets his knighthood, and that's what the output is here, and now it's renowned. However, this secondary knight knew the squire as such, so this could almost be seen as a mentor figure. When they meet up again, could be a call. And then that's the event where maybe the story can start off. So if we zoom in, let's take a look here. Knight and squire. So we bring this out here, and like, okay, so through some sort of event we can start fleshing this out. So the knight, squire, they're related somehow, perhaps through training, or perhaps there was like some sort of royal order. That's when you go in and start like writing the specifics down. However, after the transformative experience here, they're both meeting up as knights, and perhaps now let's put R for the renowned knight, which used to be the squire. The mentor figure, M Knight, is always referring back to how he knew the knight as a squire. So like there's some sort of probably like hilarious mentor-student relationships going on. It's like, oh, you shouldn't do it this way, you shouldn't do it that way, and that definitely spurs a lot of ideas. So what I end up doing now is like putting this like in a little square, and we can group this up. This is like a Blender no tutorial. We can group this up like this. So this is all the story elements. We can encompass this as night story. And it can be just as basic as that. So what happens? Well, now there's an event that they called out. So this is all of their story here. And we can connect it into, let's just say, the event, which would be, king. However, we don't really have the character right here, because they're meeting up with the king, so let's explore what the king figure is like, and we can just start generating random boxes. Sometimes I'll just do something like this. This is also like a visual thing of what I'm thinking of. I don't really do things like this. Is all my internal thing, and I'm trying to assign symbols to them to better explain how my mind works. So we'll have 3 boxes here, like maybe I want something to be connected like this, and then sure, let's do that. This is also like randomizing stuff. So how is the king related? Well, let's just say we have 1, 2, 3, plug these in, plug that in here. 3 events. Siblings. I'm guessing at this point, siblings, 1, 2, 3, and we have a single output. There's an event here. So what's this event? Well, maybe the previous king or ruler passed away, and there's 3 siblings that are vying for this. But eventually, one is the victor, which is the current king, which then establishes his sort of like, his sort of like perception and views when they call it the knights. That's pretty wild. So this is how abstractly I tend to work when trying to come up with stories, because I find if I try to think of everything, this is specific to me, if I start trying to think of every single detail right now, it kind of like leaves me no room to explore, or wiggle room to be a little fuzzy within certain areas. And if I try to relate it to music, it's kind of like reverberation. Like I kind of want to blur slightly so there's room to breathe. Now I have a auditory example. I'm using FL Studio here, and I'll show you. I just whipped up some quick chords, like here. Let me just, I can't switch it here. Let me just bring this over so you can see. And let's just say I have a series of wonderful notes here. And this is what it sounds like if we get too specific. So like if you have everything detailed out, everything's clear as day. To me, I mean, there's a little bit of reverb there, but it's like it doesn't make me want to. Doesn't leave room for imagination. As opposed to, let's say, if I reverb this all the way. Now, take a listen to this. So there is still like a slight clear indication. However, you can hear the blurring and mixing in between the two. You're trying to think, is that part 1? Is that part 2? What's happening? It creates more of a drone, which then gives you time to breathe and register to the next one while reflecting the previous notes. And that's how I want to try and approach that with storytelling, is like when another event comes in, you kind of want to reflect slightly of the past event and somehow mix it up, but you don't want to give too much away, because that's just spoon feeding. And sometimes in storytelling, it's like all mediums. You have music, you have visuals, you have dialogue, which is sound too, but they're all married together, and sometimes one thing does more heavy lifting than the other. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, and if you start saying stuff like, this happens in a lot of writing I see, which irritates me a little bit, but I understand it. Maybe it's probably for the demographic, but let's say, like a severe scene happens, and we have a character, it's like probably reflecting, let's say, if we keep the same example of night, let's say something sad happens over here. Mentor passes away. And we have the amazing scene here of the renowned knight reflecting. Perhaps looking at the sword of his mentor. Like this. And we know that this is the sword of the mentor. Sad me. And we know this is the sword of the mentor because it was introduced over here. Perhaps, you know, with a callback or with this event where they met each other. The mentor, it's like, haha, this is my renowned sword that I use that was given to me by my mentor. And that's when the call to arms happens. And it's sad because we know like this is the mentor's sword. But I find like in modern media, if this was the case, you know, imagine, let me just play this here. Reflection. Whoop. It's reflecting on the sword. And you can kind of feel the gravity of the situation. However, in, let's say more, let me show you an example here. So let's say if it's now in modern media, let me just change the sound here. It'll be like this. Oh no, my mentor has been defeated, and this is his sword that his mentor gave him, and now I am receiving the mentor. It is up to me now to carry on the justice, etc., so forth and whatnot. It gets you need like scenes to breathe, and it can be like a pretty long scene, also very static. You can have like a slow, I'm thinking cameras now, but like a slow truck in as he's just really reflecting on the sword, because it relates to the gravity of it. You don't have to explain every single situation. The music is doing the talking for you, and the music itself can have motifs of, let's say if the mentor was assigned some sort of like jingle or motifs, you can have that stretched out, you can have that like in the background reflecting. Perhaps there was a certain sound that is tied to the character or a certain color, and then you can have that added on so that the character is still within the screen, however, no longer as a character, but as a prop. It's like you've changed them, but they're still present. Yeah, so this is all over the place because I don't really talk much about how I go creating stories. It's a very weird, odd process. But it's almost like I like to think about it from moment to moment kind of thing, more art housey. So now, let's say mentor passes away through some sort of event. That'd be the output of the mentor passing away. Over here. And this is the quest itself of the two knights who've accepted it. The mentor passes away. And as the result, sad. However, we can do something interesting where, like, okay, this is now king from the event. We reroute something here to like try and connect these two together. So let's say the first king got it, but maybe the third king. What happens if I do this? You know, I'm thinking, because I'm thinking about rerouting a few things. It'd be cool to have a callback between these two. So we could have something where it could be the third sibling through some sort of event. Actually, Squire and the son or daughter or what have you, child. And so now this person is the rightful heir to this kingdom. And now we have another whole quest where if I make it a bit small like this, now we start our new. Sad. And we can use this as the king to bridge outward. So now how do these two, this is for this event here. So then you can have like the king You know, it can be like always commands, maybe the edicts that's happening with the kingdom's not doing too well, these are all connected. Finally, maybe through some sort of recognition from this third sibling, we can have another character being introduced. Let's say, rewrap this up here, event, character, then they know somehow, and then through here, this whoop, they meet up, and now the quest is to try and regain kingdom. And yeah, so it's very much like I'm always expanding out, seeing the bigger picture, and sometimes if I need something interesting, I'll go back into one of these and like, okay, let me just expand on these events and then connect it up, and it keeps it very nice and neat for me to understand how things are related. Yeah, it's kind of a weird video. Hopefully it gives you some sort of ideas to try out. It's a different way of doing things. Thank you.